Hello, welcome back to the Empowered Empath. So you think maybe you're having a spiritual awakening, but you're not sure if maybe you're just going crazy. Believe it or not, you're not alone, and far from it. Spiritual awakening is the beginning of a journey, and that journey can absolutely be, and usually is, a messy one. So today I wanted to provide you with 10 most common signs of spiritual awakening so you can decide for yourself, once and for all, is this what you are experiencing? Hey everyone, my name is Seraphim. Today I'm talking about spiritual awakening. What is it? Why does it happen to some people and not others? And what are the most common signs and symptoms of spiritual awakening? So I'm going to give you 10 of the most common signs of spiritual awakening so you can decide for yourself if this is what you are experiencing. Just before I dive in, I want to say really quickly, welcome and thank you to all of the new subscribers. Welcome to the Empowered Empath. Don't forget to pop over to the Empowered Empath on Facebook and join us there. I wanted to say thank you so much for all of the love. Also, if you don't want to miss any updates, you'll also want to follow me on Instagram. If I'm not posting here on YouTube, I'm very likely posting on Insta or Facebook. So those are the best spots. What is spiritual awakening? So first of all, let me say that in my own research, I found that there really is not one universally accepted definition of what spiritual awakening is. Also, the descriptions that I was able to find really were somewhat disappointing. So I'm going to give you my definition with the caveat that truly everyone's experience is different. Spiritual awakening is a shift in your perspective, characterized by two things. The first thing is recognition of observer consciousness, that if you can observe your thoughts and your feelings, you are not your thoughts and your feelings. You are the soul observing and experiencing your thoughts and your feelings. I call this soul perspective. Essentially, you recognize the spiritual nature of your being, that if you can observe your thoughts and feelings, you cannot possibly be the thoughts and feelings, that they spring forth within you and that you experience them, but it is your soul that is your I when you speak I am. Number two, a sense of expanded consciousness or expanded awareness that prompts you to look at your current beliefs about the world and about yourself through a critical lens. And this can actually really spark a quest for authentic truth. You recognize that some of the beliefs that you've been holding may not be true and may be based on falsehoods, and you begin a search or a quest for authentic truth. Essentially, in a spiritual awakening, we rebel against being told what to believe or what to think on all levels of our experience, of ourselves and of the world. We return to a state of curiosity about the world and begin to explore what really informs our existing beliefs. We want to determine, do these stem from a place that serves my highest good? And ultimately, we have to take responsibility. We have to take our place as a conscious creator. Take responsibility for healing and releasing anything which is no longer serving us. So why does spiritual awakening happen? Seems like it happens to some people and not other people. Like, what's the rhyme or reason? I'm going to tell you that there really isn't one. Spiritual awakening can happen to any person at any point in their lives. Very often it can be triggered by major life events like getting married, having babies, getting divorced, perhaps a loss of someone in your life who's very important to you. Literally anything can spark a spiritual awakening. Very often it is through more traumatic events, but not always. Also, it may be that nothing is happening, that, you seem to have, I'm going to throw this out there, this is a common one too, people who have felt like they've accomplished everything in life, or they've gone through all the steps. They got married, they had kids, they bought a house, they've got a good job, they're financially secure. You checked all the boxes, so what's next? I still don't feel satisfied. This can spark a spiritual awakening as well. So this is what I mean when I say can literally be anything. So how do you know if you are having a spiritual awakening? How do you determine if that's what's happening to you? Ultimately, there is a very distinct before and after where spiritual awakening is concerned, and there's no mistaking this aspect. However, there are also very commonly shared experiences amongst people who have awakened. So I'm going to go through 10 of those for you today. As I go through, just keep track of how many apply to you. It doesn't matter if only one or if all 10 apply to you. Ultimately, you have to move with your own intuition to determine if what you're experiencing is a spiritual awakening. But these 10 signs or symptoms are very commonly shared amongst those who have awakened. So I'm going to give you these to help you make that decision for yourself. Just a quick note, if you are experiencing any changes to your level of wellness, physically or mentally, please do see a doctor to rule out any kind of medical reason first. Number one is questioning everything. I said before, in spiritual awakening, we rebel against being told what to think or what to believe. And so we begin to explore our current beliefs and really decide, is this even true? It's almost a process of unbrainwashing ourselves because we're so inundated with media telling us what to think all the time, or telling us what opinion we should hold, or, telling us we need to buy this product. We're so inundated with all of that, you don't realize initially when you're in that hazy, unawakened state, how influenced you are by those messages you're receiving. And when you awaken, you recognize, wow, this is kind of weird actually. And begin this process of unbrainwashing. You almost need to unlearn the world again. And you start to sense that perhaps we've been taught some things that aren't entirely accurate. You begin searching for authentic truth and for your expression of authentic truth. So this is a big one that almost everybody who has a spiritual awakening experiences. Number two is feeling called to a higher purpose. So this is where you recognize that perhaps your 9 to 5 or perhaps your regular routine isn't satisfying you. There's something missing, that you don't maybe feel fulfilled by the work that you're doing, and really feeling like you have a higher purpose or you have some higher calling. And it can create a little bit of a void until you determine what is that calling? Like what am I being called to? This can be a fun process though of exploration. It's about finding your expression and finding your gift that you came here to share. And so it is very different than finding a job or finding a vocation or finding, a profession. This is about finding your true calling, your true purpose, what you came here to share. Now, you may have come here to share something through your vocation, through your job, but perhaps not. Everybody has a unique expression of what they came here for. So bearing that in mind, this sense though of something missing, needing something more, needing more fulfillment out of what you're doing with your day all day, that is a very commonly experienced sign. Number three, this is a fun one. Number three is synchronicities. Synchronicity is essentially when impossible or seemingly impossible coincidences align themselves for you, or situations and circumstances just align in your favor or in your benefit, or impossibly beneficial, miraculous circumstances come into your life. Also, this can be a matter of repeating number sequences following you, or maybe that song on the radio that seems to be following you and the lyrics of that song are so relevant. All of these little impossible coincidences that very often we just dismiss them, just sort of, ignore them. We begin to really engage with those synchronicities. We acknowledge them. We follow the synchronicities, and then the synchronicities build and build and build upon each other until suddenly it seems like miracles are happening in our lives. And so synchronicity is a really neat one because synchronicity points us in the right direction. It lets us know when we're on the right track, and it's sort of like our spirit guides, our higher self, the universe saying this way, pointing us in the right direction, encouraging us and letting us know you're doing well, you're on the right track, you're right where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. Like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this one. Synchronicities are a lot of fun, and they're a conversation with the universe in a way. So you begin to engage with a little bit of the magic in life, a little bit of the magic in the universe. Also, recognizing that synchronicities will be unique to you. So Spirit's going to communicate, the universe is going to communicate in ways that are meaningful to you. So what may be a synchronicity for you may not be a synchronicity for somebody else. So bear that in mind as well. Use your intuition. Spiritual awakening, I'm going to get to a little later on, helps us to develop our intuition. Number 4, a shift from victim mentality to conscious creator. We recognize that we are responsible for our circumstances and we take responsibility for the circumstances of our life. This can be a little bit uncomfortable because we need to face any, maybe poor decisions that we might have made or things that have manifested that we're not so happy with. We have to take accountability for that. But this is also empowering and liberating and exciting because we recognize that we're able to actually make changes, that we can make whatever changes it is that we need or want to make in our lives, that we have the power to do that. And so this shift into conscious creator, we release the victim mentality, we release the victimhood, and we take accountability. We take responsibility, and this allows us to make meaningful changes to our future and for our future. And we start making decisions that our future self will thank us for. Number 5, mood swings. This is something that many people experience during a spiritual awakening. I know everybody has mood swings, to be fair. We all have our days, but during a spiritual awakening, mood swings can happen because a lot of emotional stuff is coming up and you're confronting limiting beliefs that you may have. You may be learning things that, you used to hold this one belief and you realize that's actually not true at all. And so you've shifted your beliefs. And so there can be some anger and resentment that's buried deep down. The mood swings are pointing you towards the healing journey that accompanies any spiritual awakening. This is about coming to know ourselves more deeply. This is about developing the relationship we have with ourselves. And we can't do that if we're ignoring our feelings and if we're just pressing everything down and we're not confronting our traumas or confronting our limiting beliefs. So the mood swings can be a result of this inner work that we're doing, and it can also point us to where our triggers are and where we maybe need to do some shadow work. Also, if we're having challenges dealing with people who are not yet awakened, now that we're awakened, that can be a real frustration. I did make a video on that, so I'll link to that if you want to check that out. But this again is pointing us towards triggers and where we need to either expand our compassion or maybe have stronger boundaries. But typically if there's a point of resistance or a point of pain, there's something there for us. There's something that we need to examine and maybe make some shifts or changes around. Okay, I'm trying to go fast, I swear, but these are good if I do say so myself. All right. Number 6 is increased self-awareness. This works really nicely with number 5 with our mood swings because the increased self-awareness causes us to look inward. So where we might be having a mood swing previously and just want to blame everybody else because we're, pissed off or whatever. Now, with this increased self-awareness, we need to turn our lens inward and go, why am I upset by this? Why is this triggering me? Why is this bothering me? So 5 and 6 absolutely work together. Your increased self-awareness is going to prompt you to look for the lesson. What is the shift or change that I need to make around this situation? Because I recognize through my own self-awareness that I don't like how I'm handling this. I don't like how I feel right now. So what is it that I need to do differently going forward so that I don't have to be in this kind of a situation? Our emotions are a compass for us. They point us in the right direction. They help us understand what's working for us and what isn't. And so again, with this increased self-awareness, we're creating a better relationship with our emotions and we're constantly checking in with ourselves and we're making adjustments where we need to make adjustments. And that comes through the self-awareness. Okay, number 7 is increased intuition. And I alluded to this earlier, but in a spiritual awakening, very often people experience a deeper sense of intuition, a deeper sense of connection. Our sense of universal consciousness really does become expanded. We recognize our connection with all things. Perhaps you maybe even start meditating. Maybe you start keeping a journal. Maybe you start having really vivid dreams. Maybe you start seeing spirits. Any of these things can happen during a spiritual awakening because when we go inward, we discover ourselves and we discover our unique resonance and our unique gifts. It's beautiful. So, I'm getting goosebumps again. So it can point you in the right direction. It can help you engage with those synchronicities, help you see or be present enough to recognize the synchronicities when they present themselves. And this increased intuition genuinely is a byproduct of all the other steps you're taking during your spiritual awakening. Because again, spirituality is about going inward and learning coming to know ourselves more deeply and more authentically. Everybody is intuitive. Everybody has an intuitive sense. It might be a little bit different for each person. Again, our gifts may be a little bit different, but energy, we are all made up of energy, and sensing energy is something that anybody can do. We can all tap into and tune into that. Spiritual awakening can help us to do that, or not really help us, but prompt us to do that. The other steps we take, like the self-awareness, are what helps to really bring our focus inward. And then we don't even necessarily realize it, but we're listening for that internal wisdom. We're listening for that internal voice because we know that's where our authentic truth is. Number 8, increased empathy and compassion. This is where it can become incredibly difficult to witness any kind of suffering, be it in real life or even in the media or on TV or what have you. Any kind of suffering, cruelty or violence becomes really difficult to witness, really difficult to see, to the point where it may even create a physical reaction. I know for myself, my stomach will turn, like it's a visceral reaction. This is because as we move along the spiritual path, we are moving closer and closer to unconditional love, which allows for empathy and compassion towards every single organism, every single living entity. Regardless of where they may be or what their circumstances are or how we may judge them, spirituality, the path that we are on, ultimately leads to unconditional love. So as we move closer towards that, it becomes more and more difficult to see people suffer. Also, we're unbrainwashing ourselves. Most people are really numbed out to the violence that we see on TV or what have you, right? Like it's all around us. So we become very numb to it. We're just used to it. As you move through the spiritual path, you may find yourself a lot less interested in traditional media, not engaging with that as much. And as I say, you're developing your sense of compassion. When you return to that and you see the violence that's on TV or whatnot, you may actually find it somewhat shocking. Once you're no longer desensitized to all that, it's like, whoa. So that's very normal. If that's something that you're experiencing, that is definitely something lots of people feel on the spiritual path or through their spiritual awakening. Number 9, physical symptoms. Things like ringing in the ears, disrupted sleep. You may find your energy levels either go up or go down. You may have pressure on the crown chakra or the third eye chakra. You may find that you can't eat certain foods, like especially processed foods likely become more difficult to eat. You find yourself moving towards more natural foods. I'm going to call that intuitive dietary changes. Also, you may find that you're more sensitive to certain chemicals, things that are in lotions and soaps and detergents and whatnot. You may find your skin gets really irritated by any kind of unnatural products, including fabrics. So these kinds of physical symptoms are not unusual. I'm going to take this moment to just remind you, though, any changes such as this to either your well-being mentally, physically, whatever, it's always good to go see a doctor and just make sure that there's nothing else going on. Rule anything out, just for your peace of mind and mine. Number 10, feeling drawn towards nature and or animals. And this is typically accompanied by a heightened sense of responsibility for the caretaking and the well-being of the earth. This is because as we return to a more natural state energetically, our bodies are following suit, hence the physical symptoms I mentioned as well. This is sort of one of those physical symptoms, but I would almost call it a more energetic symptom, if you want to call it that. Being called into nature, feeling drawn to be in green space or near a body of water, it's almost like a natural detox for our energetic system. It is good for us to be in nature, literally, physically even. So this call towards nature, it's simply your body asserting itself, saying, hey, this would be helpful. And when you hear the call and you go out into nature and maybe you go for a walk in the forest, how do you feel afterwards? I bet much better, because it does have a measurable physical effect being in green space, being in nature, and energetically it clears out our energetic field and it replenishes us with fresh earth energy. All right, I know I said I had 10 signs and symptoms of spiritual awakening, but I do have one bonus one for you. The 11th sign that you are going through a spiritual awakening is that you're subscribed to this channel. If you're not subscribed though, hit the subscribe button if my content resonates with you. Okay, that's enough of that. All right, guys, those are my 10 most common signs or symptoms of spiritual awakening. How many of these do you relate to? How many would you say apply to you? And were there any of these that you were surprised to hear? I'd love to hear. Let me know in the comments below. Just before I wrap up, I do want to offer just a few more words about spiritual awakening. It can be a very isolating experience when you feel like you have all these new insights and you're learning all these new things and you're learning new things about yourself and you want to have someone to talk to, but perhaps your existing friends and family don't share your new perspective. They don't recognize this new person in front of them. They don't understand what you're going through. It can leave you feeling really lonely, really isolated. So I really wanted to acknowledge that as well. I don't want to call that a sign or symptom of awakening, but it is something that a lot of people who awaken spiritually do experience. I will say as well that more and more people are awakening every single day, and very often it's the people whom you would least expect who wind up awakening. So in that sense, I would say keep your heart open. Don't be afraid to talk about your new ideas. Don't be afraid to talk about your ideas, but be prepared that people may not share them and that is okay. It's not about pushing your ideas or your new insights onto anybody. If you want to share something you're excited about, there's nothing wrong with that, but do that with no expectations that you're going to change anybody's mind or anything like that. Then when those people do awaken, you maybe have planted a seed or created a safe space for them to come and ask you questions or engage with you now about that process. So stay open is what I'm saying, and recognize that everybody awakens in their own time. It also doesn't make you better than anybody else. It's not about measuring or comparing. Well, that's not true. Spiritual awakening is about comparison, but it's about comparing who you are today with who you are yesterday and working towards being the best possible version of yourself that you can be. All right, guys, I worked really hard on this video. I hope that you guys find it helpful. I know it was a bit of a wait in between my last video and this one, but I will be posting more frequently going forward. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please give me a like or share with your friends. And if you like my content, give me a subscribe and hit the bell to be notified anytime I post a new video. You can also visit tarotbyseraphim.ca if you'd like to learn more about my practice. And please do join us over on the Empowered Empath on Facebook, and I will link to all that good stuff in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Blessings to all you wonderful souls, and we'll catch you next time.